She said, "Let's test our love by sleeping with other people before marriage." I agreed, thinking it was a good idea, but just 3 days later, what she discovered at her best friend's house completely shattered her trust and changed our relationship forever. She looked at me with a smile that felt like a dare, as if she was testing how far my patience would stretch. Then she said something I never expected. "Let's sleep with other people before we get married to test our love for each other." I went numb. Part of me wanted to laugh, because it was almost absurd she would say something like that. But another part wanted to explode. I felt insulted, furious, and strangely hollow. Then a thought slipped in. If she wanted to challenge me, why not meet that challenge on my own terms? I had no intention of truly betraying her. I just wanted to show her that sometimes shocking words can be answered with an even bigger shock. So I agreed. But in my own way. 3 days later, when she walked into her best friend's apartment, the sight that met her made my heart race. And I knew. She would never forget that moment. I'd been with her for about 2 years. From the outside, our relationship looked steady. Dates, movies, planning a future, sharing every little joy and sorrow. We laughed together, confided in one another, and bickered over trivial things whose turn it was to pick the movie, whether to eat out or cook at home. But beneath that calm picture, I always felt there was something off about her. She wasn't exactly honest or submissive, far from it. She loved testing limits, liked being in control, and sometimes said or did things that left people awkward or uncomfortable. Her best friend had been with her since childhood, present through every high and low. I'd met her many times. She was cheerful and friendly, but sharp and a little sly. Before the whole love test thing, life was ordinary, not perfect. I started to notice small signs, secretive late-night texts, laughing at inside jokes I wasn't part of, and those quick looks at other people that felt deliberately directed. Sometimes I'd catch her smirking into her phone, like there was a private world I wasn't allowed into. Then one day she said something that froze me. "Let's sleep with other people before we get married, to test our love." I stared at her, a mix of hurt and anger tightening my chest. Part of me wanted to laugh at how outrageous the idea was. Another part burned with irritation. It felt like a slap, like she was daring me, testing my patience and principles. At first I was bewildered. Was she serious? A twisted joke? But the more I thought about it, the angrier I grew. I told myself, if she wants to test me, I'll go along, but on my terms. She would see the consequences of her careless words. I never intended to truly betray her. What I wanted was a lesson, a subtle, unforgettable message to show that reckless challenges have real consequences. I began to see an opportunity in her best friend, always nearby and connected, someone I could use to stage the point. Not to hurt anyone, not to humiliate her in public, just enough to make her feel the weight of her boldness. Over the next few days, I set the plan in motion. Small gestures, casual touches, offhand remarks when I met her friend, enough to suggest intimacy without crossing the line. Each interaction left me both nervous and excited. Every innocent text or careless smile from her built the tension. I thought long about how the message should land. It couldn't be cruel or obvious. It had to feel natural, an unfolding that would shock her precisely because she hadn't expected it. Night after night, I pictured her face when she realized she'd misjudged me. I knew without doubt that the next 3 days would decide everything. Would she understand the point I was making about respect and boundaries, or would she explode in anger and misunderstanding? That uncertainty made every heartbeat heavier, every glance more loaded. 3 days later, everything would reach its peak. The scene would play out right before her eyes, carefully staged, a crescendo of tension and revelation. In that moment, she would never forget. The shock, the disbelief, and the lesson that sometimes a taunt can boomerang back in ways no one expects. It wasn't about cruel revenge. It was about clarity, a quiet, indelible lesson. And I was ready. 3 days after her shocking suggestion, I still couldn't forget the serious look in her eyes when she said, "Let's sleep with other people before we get married, to test our love." I froze. Part of me surged with anger, another part filled with doubt. Does she really want to test me, or is this just an excuse to do whatever she wants? Could it be that she actually wants to sleep with someone else? Inside, I felt a mix of frustration and helplessness. Then a thought struck me. If she wants to challenge me, why not respond in a way that would truly shock her? I wanted revenge, subtle but undeniable, a way for her to feel the consequences of her own words. I texted her best friend, initially about something trivial, but in my mind, I had already plotted several intimate scenarios. Enough to make her girlfriend anxious, but not enough to truly betray her. On the first day, we met and reminisced about old memories, laughing together. I noticed something unexpected. Her best friend seemed interested in me. A sly smile, lingering glances. Suddenly the plan felt both easier and more dangerous. I told myself she likes me. That will make everything more tense but also more effective. We went for a walk, talked privately, and subtle touches appeared. Brushing hands, fixing hair, eyes lingering longer than usual. I caught sparks of curiosity and amusement in her eyes, a mixture of mischief and covert desire. Every gesture was calculated, yet it started to feel natural. I felt a mix of guilt and thrill, imagining her girlfriend's growing suspicion. She's going to notice something. She'll start guessing what's happening. So I went to her best friend's house under the pretext of checking something trivial. We talked, laughed, exchanged glances and smiles, each movement deliberate. I sat closer, my shoulder brushing hers, hands accidentally touching, eyes locking longer than they should. Then, in one unplanned yet perfect moment, we embraced and kissed on the sofa. A warm hug, a long kiss, intimate enough to create an undeniable sense of closeness. My heart raced, breath quickened. The tension, the thrill, I knew this would be the ultimate shock if her girlfriend walked in, and then it happened. The door opened. She stepped inside. I saw her eyes widen, her body stiffen. It was as if all the color had drained from the room. We instantly pulled apart, but the scene on the sofa, our embrace, our kiss, the way we sat close, the exchanged looks, was already seared into her mind. She stood frozen. No yelling, no words, just staring, shocked and furious. I could feel her heartbeat racing, her breath coming fast, her eyes red with anger. The tension in the air was so thick, it felt like a taut string about to snap. I knew this moment would be etched into her memory forever. I met her gaze, feeling both guilt and satisfaction. This was the revenge I had been waiting for, her witnessing the direct consequences of the shocking words she had spoken 3 days ago. I thought I only played along with her challenge. Why is she so furious? But there was another surprise, her best friend's reaction. She looked at me with a strange mix of happiness and embarrassment, as if we were both caught up in the moment. I could sense her enjoyment in the way she smiled, brushed my hair, and the way her eyes seemed to say, "I've wanted this for a long time too." The moment lasted only a few seconds, but it created a psychological shock of maximum intensity. She stood there angry and stunned, while her best friend and I felt exhilaration and suspense. The air was so charged I could hear my own heartbeat, our rapid breaths intertwining with a mixture of embarrassment, thrill, and anticipation. I stood there, boiling with anger, and shouted, "Well, aren't you just great? Who told you to come up with this stunt? You call it a challenge, but it's fine for you to sleep with someone else, yet I can't. Do you think I'm stupid?" She froze, eyes wide, voice trembling but sharp. What? What are you saying? How dare you?" I braced myself, still furious. "I was just following your challenge. You wanted to test love, you said it, so I went along with it." She stood there, eyes red, voice quivering but cutting. "You just followed a challenge? What kind of challenge turns into this filthy stunt? You hugged and kissed my best friend right in front of me, and you dare say it was just a test?" Every word hit me like a dagger to the heart. I could feel the years of anger and disappointment she'd been holding explode in her voice. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but rage surged again. "You're not exactly an angel yourself. You said it was a test, I followed your lead, and now you're mad. You wanted to challenge me, so I retaliated. That's it." Her eyes blazed, voice trembling yet razor-sharp. You really think it's that simple? You think I'll forgive this? You've destroyed everything." We stood there, yelling, blaming, neither backing down. In that moment I realized something. The real twist wasn't the hug or the kiss on the sofa. It was this fiery argument, where every doubt, every disappointment, every bitterness spilled out. Her best friend stood to the side, silent, eyes sparkling with quiet amusement. But at that moment, no one cared about her. What was supposed to be a 3-day challenge had turned into a psychological shock none of the three of us would ever forget. The moment stretched on for minutes, though it felt like hours. Every word, every jab, every trace of resentment and hurt peaked all at once. I realized the true twist wasn't the physical act. It was the argument that revealed raw emotions, real anger, and completely shattered trust. Finally, she exhaled heavily and turned away, refusing to look back. I stood there, feeling both empty and furious, knowing nothing would ever be the same. What started as a supposed joke had become a psychological blow none of us could ever forget. After she stormed out, I just stood there, heart pounding, trying to process everything. Honestly, I didn't feel completely wrong. I had done exactly what she asked. She suggested this test of love, and I agreed, thinking it was absurd, but fine, I would follow along. I didn't actually have feelings for her friend. It was just a setup, a way to respond to what I thought was a ridiculous idea she threw at me. But somehow, following her instructions had blown up into the worst possible scenario. The next few days were awkward, to say the least. She didn't answer my calls or messages. Every notification on my phone made my stomach knot. I knew she was hurt, angry, and probably felt betrayed, but part of me still thought she had started all this. I mean, who comes up with the idea of sleeping with someone else to test love and then expects the other person not to play along? That's not exactly fair, right? Meanwhile, my friend, the one I'd been testing, kept her distance. But every so often I could see a glint of amusement in her eyes, like she had anticipated this whole mess. It was frustrating. Here I was, caught in a storm that I didn't fully create, and yet I was the one feeling like the villain. When I finally saw her a week later at a random cafe, she didn't look at me, just sat there arms crossed, glaring without saying a word. I tried to speak. Look, I'm sorry. I only did what you suggested. I didn't think it would blow up like this. She finally looked at me, eyes watery but sharp, and said, "You think that makes it okay? You think following my ridiculous test excuses this? You're so blind. You've destroyed everything." I sighed and shook my head. "I don't see it that way. I only did what you asked. You suggested the challenge. You practically dared me. And now you're mad at me? That doesn't make sense. Honestly, the idea itself was insane. Who even says things like that? I didn't cross a line emotionally, because there was nothing real to cross. I just followed your rules." Her lips tightened, a mixture of frustration and disbelief. "You're impossible. I told you to follow the challenge, but not like this. Not in a way that would humiliate me and ruin our trust." I leaned back, exhaling slowly, thinking, well, maybe. But if we're honest, you weren't exactly innocent here either. You proposed this test. You put me in a position where any choice would hurt someone. You wanted to see what I'd do, but then got mad when I actually did it. That's on you too, don't you think? She froze, a flash of shock crossing her face. I didn't shout or raise my voice. I didn't need to. My words alone seemed to land heavier than anything I could have done physically. "I'm not saying I was perfect," I continued, "but I followed your rules. You threw the idea out there. You created the situation, and now everything's broken. That's not entirely on me." For the first time in days, she said nothing. She just stared, a mix of anger, disbelief, and sadness in her expression. I realized then that the real twist wasn't what happened on the sofa. It was the way all three of us had been manipulated by this stupid idea. A test of love that she insisted on turned into a full-blown emotional explosion, and I was just trying to play along without caring too much, because I didn't have real feelings for the other girl. By the end of that week, I understood something important. Sometimes people set impossible tests, and you follow them perfectly, but it still ends in disaster. I wasn't in the wrong emotionally. I didn't cheat, I didn't lie, I just did what she told me. And yet somehow everyone walked away hurt. I also realized that maybe the real problem wasn't just my actions or hers, it was the idea itself. Suggesting a sleep with someone else to test love challenge is reckless. It's manipulative, it's unfair, and it's the kind of thing that sets everyone up for failure. She wanted drama, and I gave her exactly what she asked for. So yeah, I regret that she's hurt, and I regret that our relationship is now broken. But I can't say I feel like the villain. I only followed instructions, and honestly, part of me thinks she should have known better than to come up with such a twisted idea in the first place. Sometimes the problem isn't just the choices we make, It's the situations we're forced into by other people's reckless ideas. So I want to ask you, what would you do if you were in my shoes? If your partner suggested a test of love so ridiculous that it involved sleeping with someone else, would you just follow along? Would you play their game, even if it meant hurting someone or maybe even yourself in the process? And what about her? Do you think she was fair, expecting me to prove my love this way, then getting mad when I actually did exactly what she asked? Or was I completely in the wrong for going along with it? I don't know if there's a clear right or wrong here. All I know is that 3 days that were supposed to be just a silly challenge turned into chaos, heartbreak, and the complete collapse of trust. It's made me question a lot about relationships, honesty, and whether some tests are really worth taking. So tell me, if this happened to you, what would you have done differently? Would you have followed the rules, walked away, or called the whole thing off from the start? I want to hear your thoughts because, honestly, I'm still trying to figure out what the right choice even is.